Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. I was just going to read land acknowledgement. I'd like to recognize that the area that we call the Fraser Valley Regional District has been home to Indigenous peoples for generations. There are 31 communities with reserve lands in the FERD's jurisdiction and as many as 69 groups with interest in the area. We honor our commitment to collaboration, inclusion, and reconciliation in our work here today and call to order the March 13th meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. And with that, I will turn things over to Ms. Kinley.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the first item on our agenda is your report on the Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting.
So I think we spoke to this prior to the meeting. I think all 8 electoral area directors are present for the Regional and Corporate Services meeting this morning. So maybe it's not really necessary to hear my version of past history.
Sure, then we can just move along to approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Motion moved Director Dixon, second Director Castle. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
5.1 is earthquake early warning in Canada. We have a delegation today by Allison Bird.
Welcome, Ms. Bird.
Hello, thank you. Yes, so I was told I have just a short period of time, so I'm going to give you a short overview, but if you have any questions, please do get in contact with me and I'll provide you with resources and all that. Okay, oops, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. I hope you can see that okay. Okay, great. So yes, so I'm part of the Earthquake Early Warning Program with Natural Resources Canada. I'm an earthquake seismologist and liaison and outreach officer for the Earthquake Early Warning Program. It's not advancing. There we go. So as you likely know, we are in a region of high seismic risk. We've had a history of earthquakes going back centuries, if not millennia, with the Indigenous peoples in the region, and we've been instrumentally monitoring for over 100 years. There's also geophysical evidence of past earthquakes, which we research as well. And we've had numerous damaging earthquakes in the past, although nothing all that recent, which unfortunately has lulled people into a false sense of security. And all these data help to inform the National Building Code of Canada. And it's a very strong code, so modern buildings should be able to withstand the shaking that we anticipate from major earthquakes. Earthquake early warning is triggered by the P wave. That's the initial pressure wave that you experience. It's usually a jolt or a rumble. They're fast waves, but they're not terribly powerful. So we detect these waves, rapidly process the data. Actually, the computers do because they're much faster than us. And then the alert is sent out before the arrival of the S waves. The S waves are the secondary waves. They're slower, but they're very strong. They're the big side-to-side motion that tends to cause damage. So as you saw from that rather too fast video, the P wave goes out, we detect it, we send out the alerts, and then the S wave comes through. So people in the seconds to tens of seconds of warning are able to drop, cover, hold on. That train stopped, so it didn't derail, and all sorts of things can happen to help reduce the impacts of the earthquake. The thresholds for alerting are based on both the magnitude, which is the size of the earthquake itself, and then the intensity, which is the strength of shaking. And so we will only be alerting for potentially harmful earthquakes, for potentially harmful shaking, not for anything you might experience, but really the ones that could potentially cause you some injury. Alerts to the public are through the National Public Alerting System. This is the same system that just sent out an Amber Alert on my phone. It also sends out severe weather alerts, and it goes through cell phone, radio, and television for areas where there's going to be magnitude 5 and greater and intensity 4 and greater. And this is done through the NPAS Pelmerex system. And the instruction is to drop, cover, hold on. This is what we practice each October during the Great British Columbia Shakeout Earthquake Drill. It is very important to practice this response. Brains do not function well when they're under stress, and the instinct is to run, which is one of the most dangerous things you can do in an earthquake. It's much better to get down to the ground before the earthquake causes you to fall, get underneath something that's going to protect you, and then hold on to it with one hand and cover your head and neck with the other. So the alerting can also trigger automated systems. It can stop trains, as I mentioned earlier. This has been done many times in Japan, and those trains, had they continued, would have derailed, and they were carrying hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Sounding alarms to stop surgery and other delicate procedures in hospitals and other facilities. Opening fire hall and ambulance bay doors so they don't get jammed shut. The vehicles can still get out and help people. Diverting planes from landing on a moving runway, stopping traffic from going onto bridges and into tunnels, which are high risk areas for vehicles, moving elevators to the nearest floor and opening the doors. Many people have been trapped in elevators in earthquakes, and then securing various types of equipment so it doesn't swing around and hurt people or cause damage. Even simple things like closing valves, so you're protecting your water source, you're protecting the environment from hazardous chemicals, securing your hard drives so you protect your data and software, you're still able to operate afterwards, and then readying the generators so you can do so. We did have our first earthquake early warning in southwestern BC just a few weeks ago. It was a magnitude 5.1 northeast of Seychelles, BC. Strong shaking was calculated to occur within the immediate vicinity, and NPAS did send an alert to TVs, radios, and cell phones in that area of strong shaking. This was an enormous opportunity for us to cultivate a culture of awareness around earthquakes and earthquake early warning as a result of this, because there was some confusion. Some people thought that they should have gotten the alert because they felt shaking, and we tried to explain to them, no, it's only if you're in harm's way that we're going to alert you. We don't want to wake you up in the middle of the night if it's only a minor rumble. And then just a few things to consider. Most earthquake early warnings will be provided seconds to tens of seconds prior to strong shaking. Almost always there will be a late alert zone close to the earthquake's epicenter where it's just not possible to get the alert to you prior to strong shaking because we just cannot beat the seismic waves. They're moving tens of kilometers per second. Also, false and missed alerts are possible. And this system is only effective if systems and people take protective actions. So it's down to those who receive the event, the alert. We will be providing this. We have been operational in BC since May. We'll be going operational in Eastern Canada later this year, and it has the potential to reduce the impacts of major earthquakes when those protective actions are taken. And I thank you very much for having me here today. Oh, and I just wanted to say we're going to be doing a little bit more public education and also onboarding some of those technical partners to use those automated response technologies such as trains.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Bird. Are there any questions, comments from directors? Director Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I think I heard this answer. So when I'm looking at the part about the alerting automated responses, like the halting trains and diverting aircraft and those kind of things, like that's not happening yet. That's if those departments or those areas get on board with this. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So we're in the process of onboarding our first two technical partners. One is a rail company in the Vancouver area. Another is an emergency management group.
Okay, thank you. And if I may have one more, Mr. Chair. Most of us sitting here probably have the Alertable app on our phones, which is other emergencies like floods and such things. Is this a separate app, or could it be somehow immersed into one so that I don't have to start telling people to get another one? I'm just curious.
There's no app required. It's all completely automated through the National Public Alerting System. Even people visiting the region should receive the alert on their phone.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Director O'Donnell.
Thanks very much for your presentation. A couple of questions. The railroad obviously goes right through my area. Both railroads go through, so I'm always concerned about that and how we're going to communicate with the people in that particular area that don't have cellular connectivity. What would be how would we get that information out to individuals if we're shutting down highways, for example? I live next to the Hope Slide, which everybody thought was triggered by an earthquake, which actually was not the case.
Thank you for knowing that.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
But yeah, so we don't have cell connectivity there. We don't have cell connectivity in different parts of Yale, Spuzzum. all the way up to Boston Bar, where my colleague's area is. In some areas, there's a lot of broken things. So how do we get the information out?
Well, we are, we have been in communication with Palmerax and NPAS and trying to figure out other ways we can push these notifications. It is tricky when you're in an area like that. Radios and televisions do help if they're on. Unfortunately, NPAS does not currently alert to the weather radio system, which of course is the system that automatically turns on if there's an alert, because that system is run with a human interface. Someone actually types in the message that goes to these weather radios, and a person is just too slow. They'd be using up valuable seconds. So currently, we're getting it to as many people as we can. We have been approached by some organizations that do audiovisual alerting to screens and things like that. They're in public areas, and they will likely come on board as a technical partner in the future. Apple has gotten in touch with us, and then just other means of communication we're investigating, whether it can be through internet to computers, for instance.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Davidson.
Just following up on that same topic, and I know recent political events have changed people's perspective on Starlink in a big way. But Rogers has partnered with Starlink and was supposed to be rolling out satellite-based cell service, at least for text and messaging, later this year. What happens and whether it comes to pass or not remains to be seen. But I think there are other players in that. There's a Canadian company called Link, which can also provide that low Earth orbit satellite service. Is the alerts that you pushed out, I take it would be in that flavor of just text, and you don't need a lot of bandwidth to push those alerts out?
No, they require very little bandwidth. It's the same as when you get those Amber Alerts on your phone. There's that really obnoxious sound,
Right.
and the message comes up. Of course, if you have a screen reader, for people who are visually impaired, it would read that message to you. It says, "Earthquake detected, drop, cover, hold on, protect yourself."
Right.
So
Okay, thank you.
that's the message that goes out.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Don't see any other comments coming our way. Once again, thank you very much, Ms. Bird, keeping us safe, and certainly appreciate your presentation today.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Good. And I forgot to welcome alternate Director Hork with us today. Herrick?
Yeah.
Pardon me. Representative Chilliwack River Valley. Welcome. And Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you. So moving to item 6.1, we have the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of February 13th, 2025.
Motion. Move Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
7.1 is abolishment of DeRoche office policies.
Move Director Castle, second Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
7.2 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Bylaw Offense Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 1778.
For a motion, Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, just an observation through the chair to staff. As far as giving the authority for enforcement to for the water and sewer to the director of engineering and the manager of operations. I was looking and just wondering, are those the people that are on the ground, or I'm looking at the park technicians have the authority to enforce park regulations. So I'm not sure how your structure works, but so somebody on the ground, like a technician, working under the manager, wouldn't it be prudent for them to be able to fined for like sprinkler violations and things like that? Just wondering.
I think we'll have Sterling Chan answer that question.
Through the chair to Director Wardenberg. Yeah, that's a good observation. It is our utility technicians who are mostly on the ground who would observe that sort of thing. But our manager of operations who is able to prescribe these penalties. He works really closely with them and spends quite a bit of time out in the field with these technicians. So it wouldn't be a problem to have that have this as a coordinated efforts, and it's in keeping with what a lot of other local governments do.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. And I know I always, these issues concern me because our community in Popcom has never had any limitations on water supply. And I worry that our fine residents and their beautiful gardens might suddenly have a limited water usage regulation brought to them. And it certainly would be important to me that there's proper justification for that to happen. So, thank you. Director Adamo.
Thanks very much. Just to staff, is there any regulatory body other than the provincial government when that has control over private water systems?
Through Mr. Chair, it's only provincial government, Water Comptroller's Office in Victoria.
Okay.
They are the one who looks after the private water system.
Okay.
So all the water system that has CPCN, it's called, they will be the only regulatory body.
So
And in terms of water quality, I think it's Fraser Health through Ministry of Health that they have the water quality issues they deal with.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with these restrictions, would they be only put on if there's a need? I know other years, some of the other communities have put on water restrictions and such, or because there was a need for it. And sometimes you hear that we put it on just as a statement. I guess where I'm going with this, I said, if we're worried about fire, sometimes keeping things green and watered also helps reduce fire risk. So that's kind of what I'm wondering where the balance is.
Through the chair to Director Dixon. Typically, staff would only recommend these type of restrictions if there were an operational need. We saw that up in Electoral Area A this past year with the Boston Bar water system. However, we do work under provincial water licenses for either groundwater supply wells or surface water sources. And sometimes as the licensee, the province will put certain restrictions or has threatened to put restrictions on us in terms of water consumption. So these would be like broad stroke approaches by the province in, the cases of extreme drought where they would say all licensees must reduce water consumption by X percentage. So in that case, as the licensee, we just have to provide, or we have to comply with what the province requires us to do. But otherwise, it would only be for operational purposes.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
7.3 is board direction on updates to the FVRD board and committee procedures bylaw.
So it was a topic of a lot of discussion this morning. Would there be a director who would like to give direction from our committee? So there's voting issues that we discussed and also board meeting times. I believe this morning the decision on voting was that a tie vote would go to 2 votes, and if it was still tied, there would be a drawing of lots. And the timing of board meetings, I think, was, I don't think there was a determination. There were a lot of different opinions being expressed.
I think that accurately reflects it, Chair Dickey. I think that the feedback that we received this morning generally was that if there was going to be a change to the timing of the board meetings, that it would be concurrent with the next board term. So staff will be putting together some potential changes to the bylaw, which will come to the board that will reflect that conversation.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. Director Castle.
I'm comfortable with the direction that was given this morning at Rex. Thanks.
Okay, is that sufficient in the way of a motion? Yeah. Do you need a motion?
I think just if you want the motion on the agenda, just that's the direction, that's fine.
Okay. Motion moved by Director Adamo, second by Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Thank you. So 8.1 is a 2025 grant and aid request for the Chilliwack Area Lions Clubs in Electoral Area H.
Motion moved Director Dixon, second Director Johnson. Any discussion, Director Dixon?
No, this is just a great opportunity for Cultus Lake, a chance to get rid of some of the invasive species and the fish that are causing havoc. And it's a lot of fun. So mark your calendars. Happy to support this. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.1 is building permit fee increase.
I'll move the recommendation.
Move Director Castle, second Director Adamo. Discussion. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, just one question. Through the chair to staff, just regarding the, where do I have it? Yeah, just how long were you using that formula for, to value the construction cost calculator? How long have you been using that as a method to, determine the value of the construction? Just wondering.
Thank you. Through the chair. We switched over to RS Means, which is a subscription service for estimating construction cost values. We switched over, I'll say, in 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adamo.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair to staff. I had a couple of questions with respect to the pricing. If the average, nobody builds a house for $250 a square foot anymore. So the average cost of a home is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000. Is this enough to cover that? And are you just simply believing the developer when they come in here and saying that's what they're going to build, when in fact it most often is not? That they overbuild what they've presented because they're trying to save money on their building permit? Does that make sense?
It certainly does. Yeah. We don't rely solely on the disclosed construction value that the applicant provides. We've, again, around 2021, we started using a software system called RS Means, which is an industry standard construction cost estimator, where we enter in the specific details of the building that's proposed, and it identifies costs specific to our region. So it's a pretty good way of keeping our value of construction numbers in line with inflation and with costs within the Lower Mainland region. So I believe we're largely capturing the value of buildings that are supposed to be built. Yep.
Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, probably. And so this proposal I'm gathering is bringing us more in line or similar to what other regional districts are doing. Is that correct?
Through the chair, there is a comparison in the staff report that compares the proposed fee to what 4 or 5 other regional districts with relatively similar circumstances are charging. And so the proposed fee increase that is recommended in the staff report of 27%, that would put us as the highest fee for I'll call it a design single family home. But it's I think we're within the same ballpark as the others, and as the other regional districts hit their update cycles, I suspect they would surpass us with their next fee increase.
Okay, thank you. And may I have one more?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the building department, I'm guessing too, is impacted by whether or not there are several building events happening or very few. And I'm guessing that the increase in fees will help address that as well.
It sure does. Yeah, the number of building permits we issue can vary greatly from over 400 in 2018 to 150 or so last year. And what's more, even and our normal range is sort of 200 to 230. That's what I would consider normal for us. But even when we get a similar amount of building permits from year to year, the total value of construction can vary greatly. And so a couple of multifamily apartment buildings, for example, in any given year will mean that the overall value of construction that those 200 building permits represent would be much higher than in subsequent years. So both the value of construction and the number of building permits have a really big effect on our permit revenues from year to year.
Thank you, Director Dixon. And Mr. Ozeroff, that the author of the report, isn't here. I understand he's not well. I had some questions I'd like to ask. Looking at the numbers around the permit fees, they seem to be trending downwards for the last 4 or 5 years quite seriously, and yet the costs seem to keep climbing. And just maybe we could have a private meeting and talk about that.
Certainly could, Director Dickey. Yeah, the key factor that's driving that is a reduction in permit numbers last year, probably this year. So the total number of building permits issued has been declining since 2019 or so. And that, in our estimation, is a result of the overall market conditions with respect to interest rates and materials and labor costs.
Okay, we were doing some work on the First Nations. Is that a factor in this, or?
It is a factor. We were at one time about 15% of our permit volume was associated with our Indigenous partners. The net revenues from that work were relatively small, in the order of $15,000 per year. So that I think is a relatively small part of the overall picture here, but a small part, but certainly a part.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, on the motion, all those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.2 is Development Variance Permit 2025-02 to increase the maximum setback for an accessory dwelling unit at 42921 Frost Road in Electoral Area H.
Okay, motion. Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move option 2 to issue the permit, the development variance permit.
Thank you. Seconder. Alternate Director Herrick, got it right. Thank you. Yeah. Discussion, Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I really do want to thank the staff for I'm in this uncomfortable position of at least recommending something that the staff did not recommend first. And but I want to thank them. I know they worked hard to get this on the agenda and to take a look at this variance on this property and see where we could go. So so that is a thank you. I think that for me, part of weighing in here is the compassion angle. This family does have some things going on that and need some extra, need to have this building on their property for a variety of reasons. When I looked at the plan and have received emails and have seen that the neighbors have, at least 3 of them have written in that they don't have a problem with the placement, even though it is beyond the 30 meters. It is just something that I'm comfortable in this case anyway, voting in favor of the variance. But I have one question beforehand, and the location, the proposed location anyway, are there any flags on that beyond the fact that it's further than 30 meters away?
through the chair. No, the proposed house location is not in an area of geotechnical hazard or flood hazard. It's not in an area of particular environmental sensitivity, and approving the variance wouldn't generate liability risks for the regional district so far as staff can see. So we don't have any concerns in that respect.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion, Director Donald?
Just a couple of questions. So it is on ALC land or it is on ALR land? So does the building of this structure, this new residential addition, will it affect the ability to farm this land in the future? Is it going to declare it basically non-farmable any longer?
Mr. Donald?
Sure. One of the reasons that the zoning bylaw establishes a maximum setback between the primary residence and the accessory residence is to support what the ALC calls a home plate concept, where the residential uses on a farm parcel are clustered together on a smaller footprint. In this case, we wouldn't be achieving that objective if the house site is approved as proposed. But in terms of net farming area, it's probably unlikely to have a significant effect on the overall area of the property that's available to farming.
Thank you, Director Adamo. Luz, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
9.3 is a temporary use permit application for temporary staff accommodation at 20955 Hemlock Valley Road in Electoral Area C.
Move Director Wardenberg, second Director Cass. Oh, Director Adamo, okay. And discussion, Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, I have a couple questions and I might amend this as we go through. Just through the chair to staff. I learned that's confirmation. I did talk to Mr. Downloose a little bit earlier, and so I just want confirmation that the development or a temporary use permit can be, so the application you can apply against once this application runs out after this renewal, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is, I know the whole report seems to center around the compliance factor. And the temporary use is for staff housing, temporary staff housing. The proposed use, I believe, is for permanent staff housing. And so what's the path of getting there? What do they have to do to be in compliance for that?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The staff accommodations that are there, they're critical for resort operations, and that's important. The success of the resort is important. I think it has a regional significance in terms of recreational amenities and also the economy of the region. So the concept of rezoning to allow staff housing on a permanent basis, I think, is an attractive proposal. The outstanding issue really is the method of sanitary sewer servicing. The temporary housing has a temporary on-site septic field, and our bylaws and policies would require a development of this sort to connect to a community sanitary sewer system. And so the key question through the rezoning process, in my view, would be the method of sanitary sewer servicing.
So can I continue? So there would be, so based on the sewer system, there would be you wouldn't require any upgrades to the buildings themselves to comply with the new zoning, like for right now they're temporary?
No, the buildings, when they were permitted, met the BC building code, and it was a temporary land use, but the buildings aren't treated any differently in terms of our building inspection and the standards of construction that we expect to see through the building permitting process. So no, there wouldn't be any requirement to upgrade the buildings to meet the building code.
So So there is no real health and safety issue pertaining to those buildings that you can see.
No, that the health and safety issue would relate to the method of sanitary sewer servicing. Right now, we believe there's an appropriate temporary on-site system in place. Sasquatch Mountain has agreed through the terms of the permit that they would remove that system and connect to the community sanitary sewer system. I believe that's a greater challenge than what was originally anticipated. And through a rezoning process, we would look for information and advice, if you will, a proposal from the applicant about how they would propose to serve the staff housing on a long-term basis, whether that's by connection to the community system, which is certainly what we would be advocating for, or whether there's another mechanism, for example, by continuing the current on-site system. That would be a key question to address.
Okay, thank you. With that information, I'm concerned about the timelines. So I'd like to amend this and make a motion for amendment for the timelines from a term of 18 months to a term of 25 months. Dear, see,
Okay, good. Thank you. Seconder Director Dixon. Discussion on the amendment. Director Wardenberg, you got your light on?
Yeah, no, I think I've said
Okay.
enough. Thank you for the.
Thank you, Director Wardenberg. So maybe through to staff. Oh, Director Davidson, go ahead.
I think you're just about to say what I was going to say, Chair, was just like to hear staff's opinion on it.
Thank you, Director Davidson. Yeah, Mr. Downs.
Thank you, Chair. So staff would welcome your direction on the timeline for the permit. We've suggested 18 months because this building has been in existence for about 10 years. I think we're certainly at that place where it's hard to consider these to be temporary uses that ought to be continued through reoccurring permits. The issue identified when the permit was issued around sanitary sewer system hasn't been addressed, even though that was a requirement of the permit. So staff were recommending 18 months as a way to deliver a strong signal to the resort owner that we're supportive of the use, but we want you to resolve these longer term issues. And for us, from our perspective, 18 months or 24 months or 25 months, I think we won't express a strong preference and would be very happy to proceed on your instructions.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Downs. Director Davidson. So just through to staff, this temporary septic system, the concern there is that that doesn't meet certain guidelines, policies, or is there a technical issue with it, or?
No, our subdivision and development servicing bylaw would establishes levels of service for different kinds of development, and for this development, it requires connection to a community sanitary sewer system, and so that's the direction that we've been proceeding in. We were satisfied that the temporary system provided doesn't result in unsafe conditions, and we were satisfied with this temporary on-site system to serve a temporary use. But as the use becomes permanent, we would look to the rezoning process for technical reporting and advice from qualified professionals about what the best long-term situation is. I think there are some practical challenges for the resort in connecting to the community system, and that may have to do with the capacity of the community system and maybe also the cost for extending the piping to support this site. Those are complicated issues, and they relate to the capacity of the system to serve undeveloped lots in the area, for example. So there's a lot of interrelationships, which we think are best addressed through rezoning, from getting public feedback and developing a better understanding of what the capacity of the system is.
Okay, thank you for the nice explanation, Mr. Downs. Any further? Oh, Director Davidson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To me, this certainly has a feel of a run-on recurring scenario that won't be the last time we hear about it. That does concern me a bit. When you've got somebody, rather than doing the appropriate process, just looks for the appropriate permanent process just looks for these short-term temporary use issues repeated periodically as needed indefinitely. Anyway, having said all that, I will defer to the local area director on this one and align my vote accordingly. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. So on the amended motion, all those in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
So Chair Dickey, I think that was some vote on the amendment. So now
Yeah.
you should do a vote on the amended motion.
Okay. So on the amended motion, do we have a mover and a seconder? So on the vote, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Moving down to item 9.4, we have Agricultural Land Commission application for fill placement at 39088 Hawkins Pickle Road in Electoral Area G.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Castle. Seconder, Director Dixon. Discussion, Director Castle.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Dickey. I just want to say that I support the staff recommendation to not forward this to the ALC for all of the reasons stated in the staff report. These concerns are in alignment with the general concerns that residents in the area have with regards to large-scale fill sites. And I hope that these considerations will form the basis of the soil deposit bylaw for non-ALR land that we hope to see coming to this committee in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Castle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
9.5 is Agricultural Land Commission application for fill placement at 13028 Stave Lake Road in Electoral Area F.
Move Director Davidson. Second, Director Damo. Discussion, Director Davidson.
Yeah, support staff recommendation. Again, the technical reasons are laid out in the report. You essentially got an application that doesn't align with the registered professional report. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davidson. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
9.6 is Agricultural Land Commission application for fill placement at 35225 Dale Road in Electoral Area F.
Move Davidson.
Move Director Davidson. Second, Director Dixon. Any discussion, Director Davidson?
This one is again supporting the staff recommendation. This one is more nuanced, and there's a certain amount of hardship flavor to it, but I don't know how to avoid it at this time. You got a case, I think, where the applicant and the registered professional have got all their ducks in a row as understood to be at the time that they did the application. If you look at the broader floodplain, we have the flood management plan in development through the Camel First Nation and Associated Engineering, which happens to be the same engineering company who did this report. But what I've been hearing through the Hatzic Watershed Stewardship Team is that bringing in fill is a problem. If you look at the floodplain at a whole, you've got the need to rely on ponding to handle large waterfall event or rainfall events. Ponding meaning that instead of the water moving through water courses, it's expected to flood fields temporarily. So when somebody takes measures to stop a field from flooding, that impacts the ponding ability of the floodplain, which can in turn raise risk to people's homes and barns and other structures like that. So while the scale of this one is small, my hope is that with Associated Engineering, they'll come up with a recommendation as to should any fill be allowed in this floodplain, or if fill should be allowed under what circumstances. So we have something a little bit more concrete to go by. Anyway, so that's it for me. I just wanted to give some context on this one. This one is hard, but I still need to go with the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Davidson. All those in favor of the motion? Contrary, motion carries.
9.7 is zoning amendment bylaw 1648 to correct a historical zoning error for private properties adjacent to Coquihalla River Provincial Park in Electoral Area B.
Motion moved Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Discussion, Director Adamo.
Just a quick question. So once this gets corrected, which is obviously the right thing to do and finally get it done, my other concern, however, is should they choose to utilize the lands, the five owners, one of them won't, but the other ones may, do they have currently an agreement in place with Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is the only access that they would have to those lands? Is that something that we should be concerned about, or because you generally can't use the right of way for the pipeline lands for anything, so without permission? Just concerned about that.
Through the chair to Director Adamo, our understanding is right now the properties are accessed through that easement agreement, and that would continue to be the case after rezoning.
So nothing to be concerned about from our point of view. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Adamo. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary? Motion carries.
10.1.1 is the Fire Hall Auxiliary Power System Installation Contract Award.
For motion, Director Wardenberg, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary? Motion carries.
Next is 10.2.1, which is Emergency Management 101, Public Education Video, and a staff presentation by Tarina College.
Welcome, Ms. College.
Good afternoon. I'm Tarina College, Manager of Emergency Management, and today I would like to show you a new tool that we have created in our emergency program, and I'm really quite excited because it's going to actually become part of our permanent tools on our website. As you remember, we were funded by the provincial government for our Indigenous engagement requirements under the Emergency and Disaster Management Act, and we took a very thoughtful approach to how to achieve the best outcomes in a very long-term way instead of just taking a short-term approach. Oftentimes within our program, we're really trying to tell the narrative of repetitively almost what a regional district is, what we can do, what we can't do. And so with that in mind, I'd like to demonstrate the video to you, which will be published on our website after the March board meeting.
Emergencies are sudden, urgent, and unexpected. While incidents are single occurrences of a specific hazard in one location, emergencies involve many incidents happening at the same time that cannot be immediately stabilized by responders. To prepare for them, we must practice emergency management together. The Fraser Valley Regional District is significant in size, communities and jurisdictions, and population. In this landscape, the FVRD plays a key role in emergency management. But it is not all-encompassing. While its emergency management program serves more than 12,150 square kilometers of electoral areas off reserve, member municipalities and First Nations manage their own emergency management programs, and the FVRD is not responsible for roads, waterways, or Crown lands. Although the FVRD maintains authority for emergency management, it must work with many other parties that also have responsibility. What does that look like? The FVRD Emergency Management Program is guided by 4 phases: mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery. Like emergencies, these 4 phases of emergency management are not linear, not isolated, and may overlap. Actions can also occur across multiple phases. As such, emergency management is a collaborative process that involves us all. Everyone, including residents, shares responsibility in building resiliency to emergencies. From increasing our situational awareness, to knowing the potential hazards in our area, to mitigation efforts, and so much more, we can all prepare, build self-sufficiency, and help each other, so that if first responders are delayed or responding agencies are located outside our community, we're capable and ready until help arrives. For more detailed information and resources, please go to the FVRD's Emergency Management webpage.
Good. Thank you.
Emergencies are sudden, urgent, and unexpected.
And we'll double down on that message. They are sudden, urgent, and unexpected, as was the second play on that video. So I thank you for welcoming me to share that with you. As you can imagine, there's a couple other items on the agenda that will be of relevance to this video. We look forward to all the different ways that we can use it. And I think it will become a neat tool that can be used in many ways other than just emergency management. It tells a story, and it tells a story of what is actually not within our scope in a way that in 2.5 minutes, I think the majority of people on the landscape could capture. We do anticipate seeing all the different ways it can be used. But I also note that I want to reflect very humbly on the fact that every one of you at some point in today's meeting so far has already factored disaster risk reduction and public safety on different agenda items. And that's a really big growing thing for us as an organization. So thank you, and I look forward to all the ways you can share this tool.
Good. Thank you again. Ms. Kinnaman.
10.2.2 is Preparedness, Resiliency, and Emergency Program Strategy. There's a motion for your consideration.
Okay, motion. Move Director Adamo, second. Director Johnson. Thank you. Any discussion? Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. While I am in support of the strategy and will support the motion, I just want to note that there's a reference in the report under cost, and it with regards to community funding options, saying that community groups could apply for, and then there's three options there. I'm not sure that I really support the idea of electoral area grant and aids. It's not that I don't support those funds being used for emergency management or for community preparedness. I'm just leery about us kind of presenting that to groups as I don't want to steer people towards a grant and aid for that. I think that there's other more appropriate funding sources for that. And I don't want to see us relying on a grant and aid program for important programs like emergency management. I think that grant and aids can be political. I think that generally we have a mindset that those are to support kind of community groups for community initiatives. And I think that community preparedness for emergencies just kind of is one notch above that. And I think that we should be working to ensure that we have other sources of funding available rather than relying on grant and aids. I'm aware through the budget process, some of the areas that there's very little that's budgeted in those grant and aid funds. And so even in that, there might be an inequity in terms of funds available based on a quote unquote political decision about how much to put in your grant and aid budget. So that's my comment, but I support the work and I support the strategy.
Thank you, Director Castle. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments. Thank you for the work on this report. I'll admit I find it overwhelming, to tell you the truth, because I think the gist of it is that the local areas have to take a little more ownership on this, and then it talks about stratas and ratepayers association and things like that. I can just immediately think of about 10 in my area. And to me, that feels unmanageable because I don't know like who is going to these stratas and setting up a team or the training or things like that. Is the work on this included? I think that's in here in the existing budget, or is this going to require an increase of staff to get word out and train people and get these teams started? And then the next one, there's a lot of questions here for me, is similar to the grant and aid one. What is that grant and aid for? Or what is, and I realize it wasn't just a grant and aid, you could something with the Fire Smart funding as well. Like what are we talking about as far as costs that I would need to have a grant and aid budget for all these community organizations?
Director Dixon. Ms. College, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I could get a response going, and Ms. College, I think we'll be able to add.
Sure.
The program that's outlined in the staff report doesn't require new staff or new resources. It's the fulfillment of the emergency management program that was before you a number of months ago, last year, the year before. It arises from the fact that we have community groups already that want to step up and be constructive players in emergency preparedness. And so we've seen groups in Yale and Laidlaw and other communities, Hemlock Valley, Sunshine Valley, step forward and want to take on some of these roles. There's a desire, I think, amongst community groups to be active in this sphere because they see it as providing important benefits to the community. So what we envision doing is working with the groups that want to work with us and provide training and help facilitate access to resources so community groups can do constructive things around preparedness. That's got a number of benefits to us because we know that the literature tells us that during disasters, communities do better when neighbors help neighbors. And if they're reliant on an emergency operations center in this room being able to get to know what's happening on the ground, get resources there, meet everybody's needs, they're not going to do as well if there is a local group like imagine a ratepayers association with a community hall building where they've received some training around evacuee support services. They can step in and on their own accord provide assistance to neighbors and engage with the EOC through proper and constructive channels while acknowledging that, not stepping on our toes, acknowledging the different roles that we play. From the staff side, we also see this as something that's an inexpensive way to deliver our program. An alternative that we commonly see is local governments maintaining a cadre of volunteers across the landscape. And we think that's not the right approach, given the size of our landscape, the diversity of our communities. And so enabling, supporting the capacity of community groups that exist for their own purposes to do some of this work, we think is a low cost and more effective way to meet that need.
Thank you. Graham said it in a very effective and thoughtful way. Preparedness is a personal responsibility, and it's not something that we in a government organization can require of our public. And so our goal in this is to fulfill the preparedness space of helping neighbors connect with neighbors in the preparedness domain. The grant and aid consideration is less about funding the intent and more about scoping what grant and aid applications could be considered for some of these purposes. And you'll remember that we've had a number of different grant and aid applications that have gone through a number of different quandaries. Do we fund this? Do we not fund this? Is this part of what we really want to do? How does it work in the public safety domain? Is it duplicating other efforts, other responsibilities, other services? So the idea of adding structure to this is that we have structure as an organization at large, not limited to preparedness. And when a disaster happens and roads are washed out and first responders can't get to neighborhoods and nobody can leave to get to a grocery store because their community is isolated, they'll have the training that's a baseline training pulled from the province's training package that will allow them to come together as a group of neighbors helping neighbors or neighbors helping people isolated in community. It's a well-studied model. It's in effect in many regional districts throughout British Columbia. And I'm certainly happy to connect on the grant and aid matter just to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to what the language is around eligibility and what is out of scope of eligibility.
Okay, thank you, East College. And that was Director Dixon's question, I believe. Yeah, okay. So we've got a number of people lined up here. Director Castle's already spoken, so I'll let Director Davidson speak and then Director Adamo.
So thank you. A kind of what if question comes to my mind, and it's been kind of niggling in the background for a while now. You know, what happens when no community group steps forward and says, you know, yeah, I'm kind of speaking for my own area. They're busy enough, you know, blocking dump trucks from dumping illegally, to start taking on additional work. The preference might well be we'd much rather just pay higher taxes and have the local government kind of do whatever it is that they feel needs to be done. So I'm just kind of concerned that we're laying out these plans based on a presumption that a local community group of some kind is going to be there and is going to be willing to be trained to fulfill this necessary role. And what happens if there is no such community group willing to step up?
Okay, thank you for your thoughts, Director Davidson. Did staff want to reply to that, or?
Through the chair to Director Davidson, it's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it because we're not actually expecting anyone to step forward, to be honest. Our expectation is that the community groups who are already in this domain, regardless of which essentially choose your own adventure module of emergency preparedness they choose to undertake, are the ones that we're going to work through. And this allows us to structure the way that we support groups that have an interest in this area so that we can be thoughtful about our staff time. You can imagine across the landscape of the Fraser Valley Regional District how many different community groups there are and how many different interpretations there are about what our role should be. As you remember, we've set an emergency management program policy. That program policy structures community resiliency efforts, and we're working towards delivering the community resiliency component of that program.
Thank you.
If I can, Chair.
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Yeah, I'm just wondering again, what if that no group comes forward? Then it would seem like there's an inherent risk in our strategy that doesn't speak to that, and that's kind of concerning to me. So I guess we'll have to see what happens, but I'm just not sure what the follow-up would be should no group start coming forward. That just means increased community risk, that I guess just goes unmitigated. I don't know, but this is concerning to me. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Davidson. Director Adamo.
Thanks very much through the chair to staff. With regards to bringing this program forward, I guess I have the only concerns or areas of interest that I have are a number of community groups that are already involved in this, although there is some overlap. So my concerns are the overlap between, for example, the Yale ratepayers and then the Yale Fire Department themselves. The communication, while it appears to be strong, there are some concerns that everybody's on a different page. So are we planning as part of this to bring all of those groups together and identify who would be taking a lead role in a situation in a particular area? That's one question. And then the other would be with respect to the Sunshine Valley, which of course has the largest population of any area within Area B and the only unfunded, unregulated volunteer fire department. So how do we incorporate them? They're already very strong and very skilled in this area. However, we want them to be on the same page that we are here within the regional district. So how do we bring that together? And then lastly, the booklet that went out that is on the website, there are numerous errors that were identified through the Yale ratepayers when they all went onto the website and took a look at it, and certain pieces of information is old news and things like that. So how do we come together to start to make some corrections in that? Because it is going to be an ongoing manual where changes occur on a regular basis. Do we have something in place for which we can start to input the new corrections required? That's all.
Thank you. Through the chair. First question had to do with what's the process or what would be done to coordinate groups where there's multiple groups active in an area, and how do we coordinate, say, a ratepayers group who are getting engaged in the emergency management sphere, and there's a fire department. That frankly is one of our motivations for this program, in that we want to proactively provide a structure for communities to constructively engage in this world. It's when they're left, if I may speak frankly, to their own devices, that's when we get groups acting inappropriately, attempting to take on emergency response roles where they're responding to emergencies. And that would put, say, a ratepayers group in conflict with the fire department as they're both responding. And so one of our purposes is to provide a structure for community groups to do positive things that are helpful in their communities. We provide training that avoids that kind of stepping on toes or getting in the way of other groups. This program would not be training residents to respond as a first responder to emergencies. We don't want them out fighting fires, for example. But constructive roles would be to help with community preparedness, educating fellow residents on risks, getting involved in the Fire Smart program to mitigate against fire hazards, serving as eyes and ears and communication pathways during emergencies to the Emergency Operations Center. There are a number of others, but these are constructive roles where resident groups can make a difference and not interfere with first responders like fire departments. So providing a structure for that activity is part of the purpose. With respect to Sunshine Valley, it may be that the fire department, or there's a group that's affiliated with the auxiliary to the fire department that's interested in taking on this preparedness type role. And we certainly would want to sit down with residents and fire department members to see if that's something that they're interested in. We're not relying on there being community groups. It's not a core element of our emergency program that must be there. It's an enhanced level of community safety and preparedness. And so we would continue to do what we do and respond to emergencies and meet needs as best we can. Our point is that if there are capable trained groups that can help meet needs during emergencies, residents will be better off and they'll get a higher level of care than what our baseline level is. Proceeding or not proceeding with this program won't alter our baseline level of service. It will simply help residents be served more effectively during emergencies by their neighbors. Your third point was the booklet on the website, which I think you're referring to our emergency management plan. We have community profiles. Absolutely, we want to know the ways in which we have outdated information, and we would be updating those as we go. They're not immediate updates, but we'll probably consolidate updates annually or thereabouts and make those minor changes. So if you have residents pointing out incorrect information or outdated information, please forward on to us. We'll compile them, and once a year or so we'll update the document and repost to our website.
Thank you. And then a follow-up, if I may, just real quickly. Is there a plan in the future then for us to perhaps provide an open house, let's say at the Hope Rec Center, where we could bring in all of the community groups that are involved, so it's all in one place at one time and we can present this concept and this program?
We've not yet worked out our communication plan, but we realize that we need to roll out the program in a formal way and communicate deliberately with community groups. It is our purpose to facilitate a network of community groups so they can talk to each other and us at the same time, whether that's getting together in the same room once a year. We're not quite sure yet. Those are details that we want. We wanted to provide you with an idea of where we saw this going and look for your concurrence at the early conceptual level. And if you agree that this is the right path, we will come back with an increasing amount of detail for your approval as we move ahead. And so that's when we would respond to questions like what's the appropriate use of grant and aid, if there is one in this program.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo and staff. Director Castle.
Thank you. And just to answer that directly, from my perspective, this is the right direction that we should be going. I agree. I appreciate Director Davidson's comments with regards to groups, areas where there may not be groups that step up. Area G, for instance, we have very few established community groups within our community, but through various discussions with staff and residents in Area G and C, there is a desire on behalf of residents who are maybe not currently affiliated with community group to see a community group established for the purpose of doing this work. So there's definitely a desire there, and while it doesn't mitigate, the completely the risk of no community group, it gives me a sense of comfort that there are people in areas that want to do this work. And just to circle back again with respect to the grant and aid, and while maybe not as provocative of saying maybe we should just raise taxes to spend this, another way of saying that is perhaps within the grant and aid there can be an allocation made for these groups that want to do this work, that outlines the eligibility and scope. So then as each EA director is going through their budget process, they can identify what they think the need might be and kind of keep that separate from a general grant and aid. But we may even go as far as to establish a fund specifically for these, emergency preparedness grant and aid or fund. I know that we have other such funds within our organization that groups can apply for different things. So maybe it's a specific fund just for this purpose. So I look forward to further detail and see where we go with this.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just further on that, is there a reason, like it looks like this kind of step forward, the emergency management, and I know that our emergency management tax requisition has increased quite substantially. And fair enough, and here we are. Is there a reason that instead of the grant and aid, like can it not come out? Can anything that the communities need or a certain proportion maybe not come out of the taxation that we already collect or whatever? Like I'm looking for community funding options. Like that's sort of where I'm at.
Certainly, through the chair, certainly. We identify grant and aid as one of a few possibilities. Really, it comes from a recognition that the community groups that want to be meaningfully active need some source of funds, and if we're inviting them into a relationship with us, they'll be asking us what sorts of funding sources are available to them. It may be that grant and aids are suitable or not, but we would much prefer to help community groups obtain grants from the province or other agencies, and if we're ranking them, that would be top of list, because that pool of fund is going to be much larger than any grant and aid possibility, I think, that's available, and a more sustainable source of funding. So that's what we truly want.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
10.2.3 is an information item. It's the Allied Pathways to Emergency Management and Climate Readiness Indigenous Engagement Requirement Fund project.
Any discussion on this issue? Hearing none, we will move forward.
10.2.4 is Emergency Management Program Policy Implementation Update. Again, happy to answer any questions.
Discussion. None, we march on.
Moving down to item 13 in our agenda, which is reports by electoral area directors.
Perhaps Director Adamo would like to start off.
Been a tremendously busy couple of months in my area. It's been terrific, working a lot with Director Smith with the District of Hope on different projects and things like that, and a new housing initiative program as a result of the direction that we received from Minister Callan and his housing report. So we've all been working together on a lot of those types of things. We continue to deal with illegal dumping, potentially illegal dumping, and future illegal dumping, all within my area. So a lot of different things have happened. A lot of community groups have been formed as a result of these types of things and looking for some land solutions to protect the areas that they're in. So yeah, it's just been a real busy time, and I've been really wanting to thank staff who've been out there almost every day in different areas doing the job with bylaws and things. They've been working over and above and really answering my questions and the questions of the community. So thanks very much for that.
Good. Thank you, Director Donald. Director Wardenberg.
Apologies, had one more thing. Sorry. I wanted to thank the staff from East as well as the staff from the office for attending our first C2C program with Chihuahua early in March with Chihuahua First Nation. It was great to have the chief and council there along with our staff and those that attended. So it was something great, a new relationship building process, and I look forward to working with that in the future. So thanks again to everyone that attended. It was well recognized by everyone, and I've had a couple of conversations with Chihuahua since then, and they really appreciated the support that was shown to them and for them and through us. So thanks again.
Good. Thanks again, Director Adamo. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just a short report. I did attend a Community Futures North Fraser board meeting via Zoom. Lots to learn there about the good things that they do. And just like to invite anybody who's in Harrison Mills, March 16th, Sunday, they're having a pancake breakfast at the Harrison Mills Community Hall from 9 a.m. to 11. See you there if you're around.
For sure. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things. I had a meeting with MLA Warbus last Friday with one of the Columbia Valley residents where we talked about Blue Creek and the excessive logging and the potential debris flows that we're expecting once it rains, and now the aerial spraying of glyphosate just kind of goes on, and the fact that this is all happening on the American side of the border and how challenging it is to really make any progress. So it was a good meeting. I think she really did understand our concerns and is working on them a little bit. So that's great. I've been having a lot of complaints and concerns and emails and phone calls about people who are living up just past our water tower on Vance Road, Lampson Road. And we've had 3 or 4, I think it's 4 fires this winter in that area, just with motorhomes being burnt or in the woods. And so people are concerned right now with, of course, what happens when summer comes, because we want to keep it safe. So reaching out to a multitude of agencies just to see if we can get together and kind of provide some support for the people there, but also for our community. Cultus Lake Stewards invited me for lunch the other day. We had a great lunch. They worked really hard at trying to protect Cultus Lake, and sometimes they feel like they're doing that on their own. They look after the invasive species, the watershed, the airshed, trying to manage the smallmouth bass, which are kind of at excessive numbers now, and predators. So they're eating all the native fish. And just kind of goes on, but they're a really good group of people and doing a lot of great work for our area. And I too want to just comment on the C2C with Chihuahua. Enjoyed that tour. It was a great opportunity to see certainly an area that I haven't been for a while, but to hear some of the work they're doing. So thank you for that.
Good.
And that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Herrick.
No.
Okay, thanks. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. Exciting times with the Hatsuk Watershed Stewardship Team as we are preparing to begin engagement with stakeholders. We'll be reaching out to Lacamo First Nation, Dunia Area Improvement District in the City of Mission, and FERD to arrange meetings and presentations to report out on what we've been up to. Met with Chief Bars to plan the North Fraser Fire Department Volunteer Appreciation Dinner that's happening this Saturday at Droche Hall. In that meeting, we discussed a number of issues, including how budgeting for volunteer appreciation is done and challenges with regards to high call volumes in recent years. I look forward to exploring these issues and solutions with staff and directors from Area C and F soon. With Director Wardenberg, I attended the community appreciation dinner hosted by the Sasquatch Lions. I just want to take a moment to commend the Lions for their work in our community and to acknowledge the literally hundreds of thousands of dollars they've contributed to community groups and individuals in the electoral areas on the north side of the river. They do good work, and our communities are very fortunate to have this group of dedicated volunteers working to support our residents. And a couple of fundraisers coming up that I'm involved in. March 22nd, in support of the Desroches Community Fair, which is being planned for August 23rd. We're going to have a music bingo fundraiser at the Desroches Hall on March 22nd in support of that. And I can't believe that Director Wardenberg didn't invite you all to the music bingo fundraiser that I'll be supporting in Harrison Mills on April 5th. To raise funds in support of their community hall. And again, always anxious and excited to support community halls, which are really the heart of our communities. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I really enjoyed our time with Chihuahua as well. It was really valuable time that we spent there. And I'm really looking forward to meeting with MLA Tony Luck on March 22nd. And that will give me an opportunity to discuss with him the North Bend Water and Sewer, as well as the Boston Bar Water and Sewer and the Boston Bar landfill. And I'm also going to continue to advocate for the folks that lost everything in the Kukupee fire. And I'm going to keep that fire going. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Johnson. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. As usual, legal fill is top of mind. It was active earlier since our last meeting. And just as suddenly you get a flurry of it. Multiple agencies responded, residents, of course, in between. Just as quickly, the equipment's been pulled off site, but I'm sure we'll see it back again at some point unless we see some sort of changes to how these things are regulated. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Nothing to report from the Popcom area, so I'll turn things back to our CAO.
Okay, so moving to public question period for items relevant to the agenda, we'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness.
Thank you. I do note we have 3 members of the public joining us in the boardroom today. So this would be your opportunity to ask a question relevant to today's agenda. And we do have 1 member of the public joining us by Zoom. And if that member of the public wishes to ask a question relevant to the agenda, they can just hit the raise hand function to indicate they have a question. Maybe we'll just give everybody an opportunity to. Okay, it looks like our in-house guests don't have a question for us, and it doesn't look like our online viewer has a question either. So we can move to the next item.
So looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move Director Dixon, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Thank you, staff. Thank you, directors. Good job, you. Yeah.